arguments begin in a lawsuit over a long-time segregation in the state's university system. The plaintiffs argue that programs at well-funded, traditionally white public universities siphon off students from historically black colleges and universities. The suit, folks, was filed 11 years ago. That's after the Maryland Higher Education Commission approved a joint MBA program between Towson University and the University of Baltimore, which Morgan State complained hurt its own MBA program. The plaintiffs, including students and alumni of some of Maryland's HBCUs, including Morgan State, Bowie State, and Coppin State, want Maryland to stop allowing traditionally white schools to duplicate programs at the HBCUs, the development of unique programs at the HBCUs, and funds for needed capital improvements. The federal judge hearing the case wrote in a 2013 opinion that Maryland has had a, quote, shameful history of segregation for much of the past century, and that public higher education opportunities for African Americans either didn't exist or were decidedly inferior to those available to white citizens in Maryland. The plaintiff's legal team has proposed that about 100 programs be transferred to or started at the HBCUs, including moving a Homeland Security program currently at Towson to Coppin. Joining us now here in D.C. is Kristen Clark, President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights Under Law. They are representing the plaintiffs. Also, folks, understand we reached out to the Maryland Higher Education Commission, the defendant in the case, but got no response. Also on our panel today, Dr. Greg Carr, Chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University, Dr. Chris Metzler, a legal scholar and political scientist who is CEO of the JMI Group, and Spencer Overton, President of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. Christian, again, this is one of those lawsuits not getting lots of attention, not much focus in terms of mainstream media, but is symptomatic of the problem of HBCUs across the country, where they were created, underfunded from day one, and then duplicate programs where they say, no, look, you don't want to go there, but you can go to the other traditionally white school.
What's remarkable about this case, Roland, is you have the Supreme Court issues a ruling, Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, that says you have to desegregate. And in the 1970s, we saw the state of Maryland actually make some progress. HBCUs in the state of Maryland were more racially diverse in the 1970s than they are today. And that's because the state of Maryland has undercut every effort, every attempt that HBCUs have made in Maryland to attract racially diverse student bodies. They would create unique programs that were not offered at any of the traditionally white institutions in Maryland. Unique programs in the sciences and in the technology fields. Masters and teaching programs that were not being offered. And the moment that they created these programs and saw white students starting to apply to these schools, Maryland would swoop in and give money to the traditionally white institutions to set up competitor programs that doomed.
And the way this is supposed to work is this. I mean, I dealt with this in Texas, with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. They want students deciding where they go to college, not based upon, I like the university, but based upon the major. And so they also, again, supposed to, what you don't want when it comes to state dollars, saying, wait a minute, we're spending money over here and money over here for the exact same program, which is actually a waste of taxpayer dollars. What they really want is to say, no, if you want to major in that, you go to that school, regardless of what kind of school it is.
Exactly, and that's what happened in the 70s and isn't happening today. So this is one of the most important desegregation cases in the higher ed context in decades. And what we hope is that the judge, we won in 2013, and we're now concluding a long trial over the remedy. And what we want is a robust remedy that will require Maryland to fund HBCUs at a level that will allow them to thrive. And most importantly, stop giving money to traditionally white institutions, allowing them to compete and take away the ability of HBCUs to thrive and attract racially diverse student bodies in Maryland.
Mississippi had a similar lawsuit. Dr. Alvin Chalmers was a lead attorney for that, that also changed universities there. How does this compare to that suit, or even what they're talking about in North Carolina, in Texas, and some other states as well?
The judge in our case said that the level of segregation in Maryland rivals what we saw in Mississippi in the case that you just referenced. I mean, this is one of the most racially segregated systems in the country today. And Maryland is through their actions has allowed this to happen, has allowed the state to turn the clock back and now be in a worse position than they were in the 1970s.
Okay, so here's what's interesting. So the state, they say they have a $26 million remediation program that will address these problems.
Anemic.
26 million?
It's anemic. It's all anemic. They offered to create a summer program to help educate students about HBCUs. We want real relief. We want real funding that will allow the HBCUs in Maryland to get back on their feet and be able to compete with the other schools and attract racially diverse student bodies again.
Greg Carr, I want to pull you in here again. This is a case that you're not going to see talked about.
No.
Anywhere else because that impacts our community directly.
That's right, Roland. That's what sent me to law school. I'm a proud graduate of Tennessee State. They were under the Geyer case in the first time in American history where a historically black college took over a historically white one, when the University of Tennessee built a whole new white campus in downtown Nashville rather than comply with the litigation. You know, Attorney Clark, do you have any hope that they're not just going to continue to go rogue? Because this accounting thing with Towson, this was just a slap in the face. Is there a 14th Amendment or not?
Well, we've been fighting them for decades, and we'll fight till the bitter end.
Yes.
We know that, you know, we're mounting this case at a moment where we're seeing this administration disrespect HBCUs at every turn. Betsy DeVos, president, none of them seem to appreciate the historical value and significance of HBCUs today. So we will fight till the bitter end.
Spencer, I make the point all the time. If you come to D.C. and if you go to the White House,
right,
you look at the White House on the right. You look. There's only one federal agency that shares along with the White House: Department of Treasury.
Treasury.
Power,
Right
money,
yep.
Power, and basically suffocating HBCUs by not funding them has been a way that white supremacy has been able to be maintained. And then, of course, folks say, oh, no, but everybody is equal when it comes to education. But when you're unwilling to spend those dollars, that proves in terms of what your intent is when it comes to educating black kids and others.
Yeah, it's about the money. We got to follow the money in terms of funding our institutions. I really just admire and appreciate Kristen in terms of her great leadership in terms of moving this forward, and the Lawyers Committee generally.
Chris, real quick.
Yeah, I know you were joking about that remedy, right?
But we're dead serious.
I mean, I have never
educate them about
HBCUs.
and
that's it, man. No, that's it.
Look,
That's ridiculous.
Increase awareness.
Yeah.
In fact, let me help you out here. A $26 million remediation program. Hold up. But they've spent more than $2 million defending the case. So 10% of the remediation program they spent on legal fees.
Right.
In Tennessee, they said they're going to set aside 75 seats at law schools, which they never even gave that up.
And just quick note, 30% of Maryland is black, right? It's one of the blackest states in the country in terms of, I mean, why does this happen in Maryland?
Actually, it's the outside of Mississippi. I believe it's the third largest concentration of African Americans in the state.
Yeah.
Kristen?
HBCUs are incredibly important institutions. They are worthy of being defended, and we hope that we're confident that we're going to prevail here in hammering out a real remedy to get HBCUs back on their feet and on equal footing with TWIs, traditionally white institutions in the state, and that will provide a roadmap for the rest of the country to help ensure the future longevity and success of HBCUs across our nation.
All right, Kristen, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And again, to folks, this is why this show matters, because you're not going to see the other networks cover this story. They're focused right now on Comey and Russia and Trump every single day. That's why it matters. Also, as you know, I started the initiative hashtag HBCU Giving Day. So today I'm wearing Florida A&M's lapel pin. And so what I'll do is I'll be actually tweeting out their link for you to also give and support our institutions. We can't just expect states to fund them or private corporations. We must also support them, especially graduates out there as well.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not gonna let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.